Um, okay, so I don't remember exactly where we left off. I know we started with the background to Shina Mokum. Um, okay, but before we continue, we're learning again, like we always do. Lili Nishmas, Yehuda Shimon, Zuchran Baruch ben Yeshua Yasa Moshe, Mordechai Chana, Zuchran Baruch ben Reb Chaim Yitzzev, and Arilev, Zuchran Baruch ben Yeshua Adam Zalman. And the Neshamas don't need aliyahs, but if whatever aliyah they would have, they have. And we should only hear, should be a schus for Klal Yisrael. And for anybody that needs refuahs, Yeshua's. Okay, so now again, if anybody's confused with the Hilchos Berachos, like we explained a few weeks ago, the reason why it's confusing with Hilchos Berachos is because Hilchos Berachos is confusing. And like we've said, anytime you have a suffix of brachas, so making a bracha levatala, saying Hashem's name is very bad. It's not good to use Hashem's name for extra. So that's why we can say, okay, the halacha is this way, but you should try and get out of it by doing so and so. That's constantly what we say, and that's what should be done. And also, you should try not to put yourself in the situation where the suffix brachas comes up. So that's basically what we're dealing with. So where we left off, and actually I've accumulated shilas throughout the week. I don't know if maybe next week we can go through them just that everybody can get a taste of, no pun intended, of what the brachas are like, meaning what the actual bracha shilas are like. But I think we've discussed previously at what point you have a bracha rishona, when does that expire, and when does a bracha achrona, when is it too late to do bracha achrona? Now what we've started is when you running around the house or you run out and leave the house, do you need a new bracha? Do you not need a new bracha? So as far as I remember, last week we discussed that there's a difference between hamaitzi and mezainis, meaning bread and cakes and cookies, pretzels, anything you make mezainis or hamaitzi on, and anything that you make shahakol on. And rice, by the way, even though we make mezainis and rice is considered like shahakol. So therefore, you somebody's texting me that they can't get on. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Okay, so anyways, we said that there's a difference between Hamotzim and Mezainis and Shakol. Hamotzim Mezainis is because it's a main staple to eat bread and to eat anything that's Mezainis. So it's considered like your meal is ongoing, even if you leave. Right? But Shakol, once you leave and you come back, it's considered as if what we call Masiyach Das, and you need to make a new bracha. So there's really two different sets of halachos when it comes to this. Let's discuss the easier one first, which is shakol. So you're drinking a coffee in your house, and then you go to work. On your way to work, you realize you forgot to make a bar nefashos on that drink, right? A very common shayla. I mean, unfortunately, people are busy, even though we should really train ourselves, and I wish I'm working on this for myself. It's a big problem. And like tonight, right now, I took a drink before, and now I'm going to be talking now for the next, I don't know, however long. And then I'm not going to remember if I made a bar nefashos. If I didn't make a bar nefashos, then I'll get up and leave, and then I'll have no recollection. So now if I have no recollection, so then as we know, you don't make another bracha. So what you do, so you don't make a bracha, and that's it. What would be best is if you take more to drink, and then you make a bar nefashis on that in case you didn't make the bar nefashis before, right? But let's say I remembered with 100% certainty, because right now I'm in my mother's house, and I go home and now I realize I did not make a bar nefashis. So do I have to come back here to make the bracha? The answer is no, 100% not. You do not have to go back for bar nefashis, and rice is included in bar nefashis for this. You don't have to go back, and you can just make the bar nefashis right then and there. Another scenario is when somebody has to go to the bathroom. So we know that the halacha is you're not allowed to say bar nefashis or any bracha when you have to go to the bathroom. So then they go to the bathroom, and then they come back, or they needed to leave to go to the bathroom in a different room, a different building. The halacha is you don't have to go back to your original place in order to make your bar nefashis. You can make it right where there is. I don't even think there is an opinion. I mean, there must be an opinion that it's better to go back, but I don't think there's one would even. I don't even think it would be commendable to go back to your original spot. However, if it's mezainis or it's hamaitzi, then you must go back to your original place. Now, halachically, that means that even if you went to work and your work is a 10-minute drive away, you have to go back home to make your alamichya or to make your birchas hamazon. Now, the only thing is, sometimes or a lot of times, unless you showed up early to work, now you already started working. So then, should you take off from your employer's time in order to go home and make alamichya? In that situation, probably not. So if there's no choice, you can make the alamichya where you are, and you don't have to go back. But the standard halacha is that you have to go back home or wherever it was that you ate in order to make that alamichya. And of course, birchas hamazon. It's a debate about shivas haminim, like dates and pomegranates and etc. So that's a debate. So again, if it's hamaitzi or mezainis, you have to go back home. And if you can't, or wherever it was that you ate, if you can't, then the next best thing to do is to have some mezainis where you are. Meaning, let's say you went to work and you brought cookies with you. So then, even though they were there for lunch, you should eat some of those cookies in the new place, and then you can make the alamichya in that place. It would be better. Okay, so that meaning, and then the third choice is if you can't. Again, first choice is to go back. Second choice is if you can't go back, then eat some mezainis where you are, and then you make the alamichya. You would have to make a new bracha. You would, yes, have to make a new bracha on the cookies because you didn't plan on eating those cookies. So therefore, new bracha would be required. And if you can't do that, then you can make your alamichya or birchas hamazon where you are. Can you do it lechatchila? That's also a common question. Somebody is running late and they wash at home. Can they lechatchila change places? So now that brings us to the second second difference between bread and bar nefashos and alamichya / birchas hamazon. Again, alamichya / birchas hamazon go together, and then bar nefashos is a separate category. So let's say, that's again what we just said is going back to your original place to make your bracha achrona. For bar nefashos, you do not have to go back to your original place. For alamichya / birchas hamazon, you do have to go back to your original place. Fine. I hope that's clear. Now, to take it to the next level is, if you change places, do you have to make a new bracha? For example, you just sat down to breakfast and you thought you had time to eat, and then you realized you're running late, so you got to run and you're going to finish your meal in the car. Or you drank a coffee, you started a coffee in the house, and then you realize that you have to go bring something to the kids' school. Or whatever, you can use your imagination, whatever the scenarios are. So now does one need to make a new bracha when they move places? And taking it to on a smaller level is moving within places inside your house. So do you need to make a new bracha? That's called shini makom, and it's dependent on the previous cases. So bar and nefashos, where you don't have to go back to your original place. So therefore, the reason why you don't have to go back to your original place is because it's over with. Meaning since it's only bar and nefashos, it's a temporary eating. So therefore, it's over and done with, and therefore you don't have to go back to the original place. But and therefore, since you don't have to go back to the original place, so therefore, when you change places, then that's considered like your old eating is done with, and therefore you must make a new bracha. I hope that's clear. Meaning, since it's once you move, it's bar nefashos, so it's sort of like again, no pun intended. It's a fluid situation, meaning everything is changing from second to second. So therefore, when you get up from your original spot, the same way you don't have to go back there because there's no point in going back there because bygones are bygones. Therefore, your new eating, when you get to the car, let's say, or when you get to the new place even though you're eating the same food, you got to the new place, it's considered a new entity because it's a fluid situation. Therefore, you have to make a new bracha. But if it was bread and mezainis, since that's it's a staple, so therefore it's considered like your original meal, even when you move places, which is why you have to go back to make your bracha achrona. So therefore, even when you change places, it's still considered part of your original meal, and therefore you don't need a new bracha, right? So that's basically the difference. Okay, so now going back to the previous scenario, you washed in your house thinking you have enough time to go to work and to finish eating before you go to work, and now you realize you're running too late, so you're going to finish your sandwich in the car and or at work. So the halacha there is very clear: you do not need a new bracha because it's all considered part of your original meal. If you were eating a yogurt and you started your yogurt and now you decided I have to go to work or I have to get into the car, then when you change places, you do need a new bracha rishona, and that would apply to coffee, which is the big one. That's usually the case, and it's and again because it's considered a new achila. So since it's a new achila, so you have to make a new bracha. Right? Now, let's go through all this. Let's go through the situations. I'm going to try and remember all the situations. Please, if I'm not remembering something or you have a question, then please post it in the chat so that we can make sure we clarify as much as we can. So I think we mentioned last week, parenthetically, that this is just something to mention before we go into specific scenarios, that if you leave somebody at the table and you get up and leave, meaning let's say you have this breakfast and you're eating with a lot of people and then you had to run out and bring something to the school for your kid. So you ran out and then you came back in. If the people are still sitting at the table and they have not finished eating, then you don't make a new bracha. Because those people, like we said, it's considered, since the people are sitting there and eating, it's considered like you're still part of the original meal and you haven't given it up in your head. But if the people are not there, so then you have to make a new bracha, right? So it's all about the main rule, and whenever trying to understand halacha, especially confusing halacha, is if you understand the basic rule, then you can figure out what you need to do. Okay, so so having things in mind. So that's that. So let's talk about the bread first and the mezainis, and then we'll move on to the shahal, because the bread and the mezainis is much more lenient because we said it's continuation of a meal. So if you had to run with the bread and the mezainis, if you had to run, you certainly don't make a new bracha. The question is, can you do that lechatchila? Meaning, you have a family simcha to go to, and it's hectic when you get to the simcha, people making kiddush and hamaitzi and waiting on us. You say, you know what, I'm going to start the meal at home, and then I'm going to go, and I'm going to go over to the simcha. Or like chassidim, they like to go to Rebbe's tish, so they want to eat by the Rebbe's tish. So they lechatchila make hamaitzi at home with to have in mind in order to go eat someplace else. So the halacha is, yes, for a simcha and for a mitzvah, definitely you're allowed to lechatchila make your hamatzah at home, and then continue in a different place. You should have at least the kazayas of bread or cake in the new place, if you can. If you can't, then less than that is also okay. And then the third choice is if you don't eat anything at all. But you should try and make it your business, which is usually possible. So if it's for a good reason, then you can have that in mind. If you're late for work, and you had the hamaitzi in mind when you washed, then yes, 100% you can do that also. Now, is it always better, just as a disclaimer, and we all know this, but it's always worth reiterating. Saying Birchas Hamazon is, for women, it's probably the Rabbanon. That's for technical reasons. For men, it's a daraisa if they fill themselves up. But it's very Birchas Hamazon. The Gedolim always said that those that are having tsaras and need yeshuas, which everybody needs in some way, shape, or form, should bench with a bencher inside and bench slowly and bench with concentration. So running around and eating and benching in situations which are not ideal is not great. But I'm just saying that just to make sure that we're on the same page with that. But so the running around doesn't usually bode well for concentration. So that's the first thing. But that being said, bottom line is we live hectic lives, Baruch Hashem, and therefore there's a lot of running around. So if it's a good reason and you bring the bread with you, then it's okay. One thing is for sure. So don't wash in your house, and then if you know you're gonna have a long commute, so you figure, okay, I'll be from about it, so I'll wash in my house, and then I'll make the hamaitzi in the car. That's too big a hefsek between the tilas yadayim and the hamaitzi. So it would be better to make the hamaitzi in your house and then go. That because it's less of a hefsek. So that's why for mazainas and hamaitzi, it's pretty much a straight, easy situation. The shahakal is much different, but here's a couple of questions here. So if you make a bracha at home on your yogurt or coffee and you have in mind that you will be having the rest in the car, so we're going to get to that in a minute. What should you do if you finish your sandwich in the car in regards to bracha achrona? So then you should make the bracha achrona in your car, preferably not while you're driving. Yes, okay. So is it better to make a bar nefashos on a half coffee drunk at home before switching to the car and a new shahakal? Okay, so those are good questions, and we're going to discuss that right now. So, what do we call leaving? So let's first try and break down what do we call a shinoi makam, which is changing location. So within one house, it's a machlokes within one house, meaning you go upstairs with your coffee. So do you need a new bracha or not? So if it's in one house, all in your jurisdiction, that's considered one place. You do not have to make a new bracha. Is it best to not do that? Because there are opinions that say you need a new bracha. Yes, it's best not to do that. It would be best to finish your coffee, but it's hectic, so not always is that an option. I mean, holding it in your hand helps, because since you made the bracha, all these are all machloksim. So holding it in your hand helps, keeping it in your mouth helps. Each, as you go through the different options, the more things you do to make it less of a shaila is the better. But all of them are machloksim. So that's what makes it so confusing. If you live in an apartment house and you go from one apartment to another apartment, and so if they're both your own apartments, so then that's one bracha. But that's not usually the case. It's somebody else's apartment, so then you would have to make a new bracha. Again, this is for shakol. Mezainis and Hamaitzi you do not make. So that would be for Shakol. If you go out to the yard, right? Or how about a porch? So a covered porch is definitely considered part of the house. An uncovered porch is debatable. So basically, an uncovered porch you can be lenient with that you don't need a new bracha. Right? But going out to the yard is not as simple. There are makilim, and I'm just saying this because just to say why the bracha is more the situation is more confusing is that a yard that's fenced in, so some want to say that's an extension of the house. Many others say it's not an extension. It's not an extension of the house, right? So it's really best not to do that. It's best to make a bar nefashos, and then and then uh, and then make a new bracha when you go out there. Right? However, if you can see the original place where you originally made your bracha, then you wouldn't need a new bracha. I know it's a lot of information here, but meaning you made your bracha in the kitchen, and then when you go out to the yard, you could see the kitchen. So then you would not need a new bracha, right? Same thing if you're walking around the yard, you have a large yard, you made your bracha one end of the yard, and then you don't have to make a new bracha when you go to the other side of the yard. Same thing in a park, right? But now the question that was asked and that's asked a lot is what happens if you leave for a second? Well, nobody asked that part, but first, let's say you leave for the mailman comes at a UPS and you step outside. So now you are only going out for a few seconds. So do you need to make a new bracha? So that's a big machlokes. Many poskim say once you leave that location, so then that's it. Even if you went outside for a few seconds to get the mail or to bring something to somebody, etc., then you need a new bracha. But since it's a big shiloh, you should really try not to do that. So the best eitzah, and I hate to bring it up and make everybody crazy, but let's say you're drinking your coffee or your yogurt, and then you run outside for a few seconds, pick up a kid from the carpool. Then if you're out there schmoozing for a couple of minutes, then for sure when you come back in, you need to make a new bracha. But if you really only went out for a few seconds, so that's a big machlokes. To tell you not to make a new bracha is going against many shitas that say it needs a new bracha. To tell you that you need a new bracha, there's many opinions that say you don't need a new bracha. So what you do is you should make a new sha'akol on something else. Right? Go into the refrigerator and take I don't know, a piece of cheese or a yogurt. I don't remember which case we were talking about yogurt. Whatever, take a drink. It's make a sha'akol on something else. Like this, you know that you're covered according to all opinions. Again, lechatchila is not to do that. The lechatchila is not to do that, but if you did it, it's push comes to shove. If you did it and you were only outside for a few seconds, do not make a new bracha because at the end of the day, it's a suffix brachas. But if you can eat something else, that would be better. So yes, so let's say you know you're gonna have to go into the car. You're late for work. You're eating a yogurt at home. The best thing to do would be to make a bar nefashos in your house, and then when you go to the car, you make a new bracha. Like this, you're definitely covered. Now, there's something that comes up a lot, and that's can you have it in mind? A lot of misunderstanding with that. Having it in mind by shahakol doesn't really work. So just because having in mind works for bread and mezainis, it does not work for shahakol. So meaning, if I'm sitting in my table right now and I decide to drink some seltzer, and then I have in mind that I'm going in the car, I'm gonna drink more. Well, I'm sorry, that was not a good example. Let's dial it back. Like I said, I'm in my mother's house now, so I make a sha'akol here, and then I have in mind that when the next year is over, I'm gonna just go take a drink in my house. That doesn't work. There's no having in mind by a bar nefashos. So to answer the question, yogurt or coffee and have it in mind, that doesn't work. However, there is one case where it does work. And that's if you're traveling. And I imagine this is a very, very common case. And hopefully, with all the confusion that I'm saying here tonight, hopefully we can at least do and give some clarity with this, which is that if you know that you're going to be leaving, meaning let's say you're waiting for a ride, and while you're waiting for your ride, you're standing by the door and the coffee is really hot and you want to make sure you take a nice sip of the coffee when it's hot. So there, it's as if you're already traveling. So since you're already traveling, you can make the hashakol right then and there. And even if you won't get picked up for a few minutes, since that was your intention, so then you are okay, right? Um, right. But if you're sitting by the table and you know you're going to be traveling, so then if you leave immediately, then that works. If you don't leave immediately, then it doesn't work. Because again, we said having in mind by shahakol does not work. But if you're somebody who's traveling, then it does work. Okay, so I hope that that's clear. So meaning you're in a gas station, you stop in a gas station on your travels, and you're thirsty. So you take the drink, and then you're going to walk to your car. So then that's okay. That's okay. You're allowed. You don't need to make any new brachas because the whole bracha that you made was while you're in transit. That was your intention. But if that was not your initial intent, meaning you can't have that intention if you are not considered a traveler right away. Right. So meaning like me using this scenario, I'm not traveling. I live next door. So I can't have in mind the shahakal here and then have it cover another drink they're going to take over there. That doesn't work. If I'm going to be walking over there immediately and I want to take a drink here first, then that works, right? Because that's considered traveling. So that will help. I would imagine that would help a lot of people. That if you know you're running out to work, but you wanted to take a drink here or something like that, and then you're going to continue it, then that works. Now, along those lines, along those that are on for the Kitzur share, I'm sorry, we started a couple minutes late, so we'll finish in 2 minutes. That's if you continue to eat the actual food that you're eating, then many hold that you would not need a new bracha. For example, you're drinking your coffee, and now as you leave your house, meaning you had started your coffee in the house and you thought, I got time to finish the coffee before my ride comes or before I have to leave. And then you get a phone call that you have to leave now. So then as long as you haven't stopped drinking the coffee, which means it has, and I don't know how practical this is, but you can't go more than 3 seconds without eating. Meaning, let's say you're eating popcorn. So you started your popcorn at home, and then as you're walking out to the car, you keep munching the popcorn. And then when you get into the car, you keep munching the popcorn. And then when you get to work, it's a big bag of popcorn, right? And then when you get to work, you're still munching the popcorn. So then you would not need a new bracha, even though that was not your intention when you leave. Again, this is also a machlokes, but there's enough places that say you would not need a new bracha when you do this, right? But once you stop eating for a few seconds, then you would need a new bracha. Right. So again, I don't know how practical that case is, but I've done that sometimes. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's the best thing in the world to do. But let's say I took a drink at home and I was planning on finishing it, and then I have to run out. So what I'll do is I'll keep the drink in my mouth as I leave the house, and then when I leave it in the mouth till I get to the car, and then I'll try and continue drinking then, and then I won't need a new bracha. But it could be a little bit of a headache because many say that once you leave a few seconds of not eating, then you would need a new bracha. So that's basically the dinam of changing locations. If anybody has any questions, please post it right now. there aren't that many questions, which either means I'm being very clear or I'm being very unclear. So I hope it's clear. I know we're not saying that much information here, but it takes a lot of time to give over information. Just quickly to review what we've discussed is that when it comes to Hametz and Mezainis, when you change locations, you don't need a new bracha. It doesn't make a difference if you had it in mind, you didn't have it in mind. The only thing was can you lichatchila change locations without having it in mind? It's best not to change locations without having it in mind. If you did, then you should take along some bread with you and eat it where you are. That you should do regardless. And then you don't make new brachas at all. Should you go back home to make a bracha achrona? Yes, you should, unless you can't, in which case you make the bracha achrona for hamotzei mezanos where you are. But in a fashas or sha'akol, that you do not, if you forgot to make your bracha achrona, you do not have to go back to your original place. If you change places, then you have to make a new bracha. The only exceptions for the most part is if you knew you were going to be traveling and you're on the way and you were moving immediately after you made the bracha, then you would not need to make new brachas because you made the bracha while you were in transit. If you didn't have it in mind and you're constantly eating, then you also wouldn't need a new bracha. And if you leave when you walk around within your own house, you don't need a new bracha. When you walk around other places, go from building to building, then you would need a new bracha. If you ran outside for a few seconds, there's a big shaila, so the best thing to do would be to eat something else that has sha'akol. Okay, I hope that was clear. Hopefully by next week we will finish our Hilchos Berachos, and then we will have a week off, Be'ez Hashem, and then we'll have a few more weeks of whatever subject to everybody's choosing. Okay, everybody should have a good tzvach and a good year, and everybody should be matzliach.